No, not that one. Oh, see. Is it recording? What is recording? Hello. Welcome to Anthony's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about improv again. You know, it's funny because it's meant to be some spontaneous and stuff, but he's just doing the same things. I'm talking to them.
You're having a little conversation.
I'm having a little conversation about you, actually.
Yeah.
Just
I'm just going to...
camera one, camera two.
Again. I'm just going to start recording now because it's just like I found in the past that you say interesting things and you might as well be recording.
You may as well be recording. Yeah, it's true.
It's going to be fun because you're just quite natural in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
In a sense.
I don't mind, but yeah, I suppose I don't mind. It doesn't make me any more or less conscious. Why, thank you. Well, actually, I was going to ask you about what you're kind of happy talking about.
Yeah.
Because
that's interesting because I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. I think everyone goes through life and encounters good times, bad times. And I think before I had anything truly, truly profound that would break me, which is what happened in my life, I wouldn't have understood necessarily it happening to someone else and seeing what happened with their life. I wouldn't be able to understand it or even know how to help. Whereas having been through something that knocks you for six.
Yeah.
And then finding ways through it. I mean, one of the things I would love to do is use improv to try and help people that have been in similar situations because of how much it's helped me. It's been very complementary to my therapy.
Oh,
it's
me
been,
too.
Yeah, it's been actually something really profoundly good in my life that has helped me learn about myself again. So can I tell you, I will tell you what has happened to me.
So we'll agree to what extent we want to talk about it during the actual main conversation.
Because I suppose I don't particularly want to go into detail, but the results, the effects are the things that I want to talk about. The effects are what improv has helped with. Two main things I can identify that shook me. The first one was when I was 26. I was just in a very new relationship and I got pregnant. And I took the morning after pill. I tried not to get pregnant, but it didn't work. And so I had an abortion. I chose that. And I would say that's not an easy decision for anyone. That's not a pleasant thing to go through for anyone.
Sure.
And complete mixed feelings about it. But I don't believe there was a winning move in that scenario, right? There's only what you choose and how you move forward with it. And then a few years after that, completely separately. So I just need to take a moment. Part of the important thing of my therapy is that I don't just blurt things out, but I do feel them. I do connect with the fact it's part of my story. So the other thing that happened back in 2020, right at the beginning of lockdown, is I was raped by someone I thought was a friend.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to discuss, as I said, that event, but the effect it had on me after that was I didn't want to go out. And, you know, I went through mental health things. So I was diagnosed with PTSD by my workplace. I had group therapy on Zoom. I had individual therapy. I couldn't find a way out of it. I then stopped being able to work. So my self-worth, my value, as I saw value back then in terms of, you know, I'm a Durham graduate. I should be able to achieve more than this. I should be functional.
You're perhaps not wanting to share too much of the detail, but it's more about the magnitude of experiences which can leave you at a crushing low and, you know, also just very frightened and
the fear
scarred.
Level, the trauma level, the fear. Yes, right.
So I think we'll have to play it by ear a bit. I'll just tell you like a few things about my life. For me, 2013 was this series of events which reached a point where everything started to fall to bits, basically, and I just couldn't really cope.
Yeah.
I had to take a break from work, and it was very scary. I kind of felt like I was going mad.
Yeah.
I felt like I was losing a grip on reality. And I felt very alone because I at the time, initially, I didn't really know whether this was normal, and I didn't know whether it was ever going to get better.
Yeah.
So it was this bleak,
like, is this what life is now?
Is this what life is? Is there any
Is this how I'm going to
return from
experience
this?
everything? Yeah. I mean, I really connect with that whole, like, is this ever going to change? Is this what life is now? That I think I felt that for a few years, just hiding away. The reason why I want to talk about this in this context is because improv, I think for some people, is a wonderful hobby to take up. It's a wonderful way of expressing yourself and playing. But I think for others, it can be a real access point back into life. That's what I found it to be.
Yeah.
And so I suppose anyone listening to this, I'd like people that maybe have suffered some hits in their life and have struggled with their self-esteem or struggled with even getting access to their life again. They're just going through the motions. Anyone that's in that position, you don't have to do comedy improv. You don't have to try and be funny. I mean, I think things ended up being funny with improv. Things end up being funny because you're playing, but it doesn't always have to be. And I think there was part of improv for me that wasn't about the performance, wasn't about being funny. It was about not having to be perfect, not beating myself up at every little thing, having a bit of freedom, being able to throw stuff away if it doesn't work. But I mean, we'll get into it. We'll get into it, audience.
Yeah, you're saying more than just, hey, isn't improv so fun? It's like improv can be therapeutic. It can be a real tool for getting your life back when you've hit rock bottom and sort of starting to rebuild. Yeah.
Feeling that.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
You're not meant to catch that. Stop catching things. Hey Siri, goodbye.
Is there something else I can help with?
No.
Okay. How do I turn Siri off? Siri, go off. Turn off.
Off.
This on the web.
I was in a meditation class the other day, and then we had a little question and answer session afterwards. If someone's phone went, I'm sorry, I can't help with that. Or like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And it's like, well, yeah, because we're talking about the brains and being humans, and you don't get it, computer.
I think I've turned Siri off.
Should we try?
Yes. Okay. Shall we just...
I'm on lots of screens. I'm on lots of screens.
Great. So, hi, Amelia. Thank you for coming on my podcast.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
So by way of introduction, let's say a few things, shall we? So we obviously know each other through improv.
Yes, we
performed together in the Awkward Actors in Oxford. And I think I've known you for about a year because we did, about this time last year, we were doing the introductory course together.
Well, I was technically, wasn't I? No, we were together. We were doing it together. I wasn't being leader. I assumed I was leading that one.
You were actually a humble participant.
I was.
Although I remember thinking, Amelia's clearly already done some improv or is like moving quite quickly here, because you were giving vibes of like extreme enthusiasm but also rapid progress.
Right. I mean, you've also, I think, you've become such a great improv performer. We can talk about this maybe at the end.
So improv is how we know each other.
Yes.
And a big part of what we want to talk about today. But I think it would be helpful to start by hearing a little bit about you and your life and who you are as a person. Just give us a sense of some key...
Who is Amelia? So I'm Amelia Monks. I grew up in Aylesbury, not too far from Oxford. Went to a grammar school. I have a brother, older brother, 2.5 years older. I went to an all-girls school and I massively struggled. I mean, I did very well. I got A stars and A's at A level. But I mean, my mum was reading some of her diaries to me the other day, and a lot of it was Amelia's refusing to go to school again. Amelia's French teacher is saying she's disruptive in lessons, and if she really put her mind to it, she could do well, etc. So I struggled massively with the idea of this formal education. You went through the school, you got good grades, you went to university, you ended up getting a good job, and then you died. And I just hated, the school was very focused on grades. It wasn't, oh, what do you want to do for GCSE? Do you want to do the thing you enjoy that you're interested in? No, do the thing you're good at. Get good grades. That's what it was. Sorry for the loudness. And so I really started to struggle with it. I was pretty right wing at school. Yes, I was quite right wing. I mean, I was brought up quite conservatively, but even in terms of social, not just economically conservative, but I think I was socially quite conservative.
So were you sort of leaning into that because it was useful to you in some way to do that? Why do you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me a sense of, right, this is what is right and this is what is wrong. And that gives you a sense of safety. If you know right and wrong, what's good and bad, you're fine.
Yeah.
Right? My parents are atheist. I kind of rebelled and I became Christian and became Baptist. And I loved that. It gave me a very strong sense of right and wrong, what you can do, what you can't do, what you should feel, what you shouldn't feel, all these things. So I was definitely safety seeking. I was seeking what was right, what was the good thing. I was going to get everything right in my life. So I had a good life and I could do that because I knew what was right and wrong. That's very much how I was brought up. I wasn't this free thinking like, oh, maybe we should accept it. No. I was very rigid. I joined the Air Training Corps. I'm the third generation of Monkses to be in the Air Training Corps. So my grandfather was, my father was, and then I was, and I became a cadet sergeant really quickly.
Just say a little bit about what that actually involves, because I'm quite ignorant.
Okay, so the Air Training Corps is a wonderful thing, I think. There's Army cadets and there's also Sea cadets. And the Air cadets, I mean, I would go to the TA centre in Aylesbury. We'd have our uniforms, both camouflage for activity. We'd have smart dress uniforms. We would shine our shoes. Again, I knew very much what was right, what was wrong. If I hadn't ironed my shirt, hands up, it's not ironed enough. I get told, that's it. I can't argue back, that's it. I've been told off for something, fine, I take it. Then, we'd do aircraft recognition classes, we'd do shooting, so I learned to shoot. We'd go away, I've flown in a Chinook and thrown up.
What's a Chinook?
A Chinook is a double rotor-bladed helicopter. I've seen them around. They transport things. They also do military manoeuvres. So we went up to RAF Kinloss and they had some there.
And how old were you at this point?
So I think I was 12 or 13 when I started that. And then by the time I was 16, I was a drill sergeant, if you can imagine. So I would be the one shouting commands across it.
I can imagine you might be quite good at shouting commands.
Yeah. I felt very powerful, but it was very borrowed power, It wasn't like, it was very much, I've got these arrows on my lapels, so epaulets or whatever they're called, and therefore you do what I say. A very authoritarian, very structured. Yes. I love structure. I think I would have done very well in the military because I love this knowing what to do and what not to do. I really enjoy that, except I don't think I do anymore. Okay. But at that time,
that was really
great. It felt secure. It felt like I knew what was going on. I'm also quite an established oboist. So during all this time at school, I went on tour to Austria with a concert band. I've performed in the Royal Albert Hall 3 times. And once part of the orchestra, once concert band, once singing as part of a mass choir.
So I'm getting a sense of quite a high-achieving person who was doing lots of different things and doing quite well at all of them. And also you were looking for things which gave you a structure and a place where it was clear what was expected of you and what the rules were, and you would sort of flourish within this structure. What came next? I'm guessing there's been a shift.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? And
I think it continued through university. I mean, after school, after I did all these things, I think I liked the structure, and at the same time I was rebelling against it because I was then not turning up to school. I was walking away from school because it was too much. I rejected doing grades on the oboe because I was like, it's too stressful. I just want to play music. Again, no improvisation in the music. It was all counting the bars. It was all very, you play, there's a technique. Right time to play, technique, sound, playing as part of a group. You play when you're meant to, not when you're not meant to. No one's jumping in. So therefore I didn't think I was creative. I was a rule follower. Even though I was being musical, even though I was doing all these exciting things, I felt very rule driven, and I felt like I could win that way, right? If you know the rules, you can win.
Yes.
If you know what the mark scheme is saying, you can jump through the hoops.
Yeah.
After that, I didn't want to go to university straight away. I got a job at HMV when it wasn't, vinyl or whatever. It was still
the
CDs
original,
the OG.
Yeah.
And I had it in my head that I was going to go to China. So
that's a very particular thing to have in your head.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
You know what? I really don't know where the whole China thing came from. As you grow up, you start to realize you're not the only person in the world. You're not the only country in the world, the only culture in the world. There are so many out there, so many different ways of life. and none of them are wrong. We're all human, right? So I was there thinking right, wrong, and actually that's just the rules that I've been given here, and they're the rules I'm giving import to, not are actually important. And China's it's such an old civilization. Their writing system, you can see it from thousands upon thousands of years ago. You can see it established from bones on the back of the turtle bones all the way through, and you start to see the similarities in the characters. And I thought, wow, I've forgotten the word. What is it? It's very true. It's very kept its essence in a way of how to just communicate very simple things. I thought, wow, I mean, China, it's still going. Yeah, it's had some revolutions, but the language is still going. I just became fascinated with the history, that it was so different, that it's a global superpower bigger than us, and it's so different. And yet that's when, I wanted to study anthropology. I went through many things. I wanted to do psychology first of all and become a criminal psychologist. I would go to the libraries in my lunchtime sometimes just to read about abnormal psychology and stuff. I thought, yeah, I want to be a counsellor. And then loads of people were like, I want to do psychology. So I was like, I'm going to reject psychology because everyone's going for it. Stupid decision. But then, well, not stupid, but again, very much like looking at what other people are doing and trying to think, well, what can I do? And then I wanted to study anthropology. Well, no, actually, I wanted to do Chinese. So I was looking at going to SOAS to do Chinese. I was like, I'm really bad at languages. I told you, my French teacher said, she doesn't study. I got an A. I got an A in French. Know the mark schemes, people. So then it went to anthropology, because it was this idea of different cultures and also the biology, human evolution, to see we are this animal that's evolved. Well, I was interested about human behavior and other cultures, so I went for it.
So it began in a sense with China, but it sounds like the anthropology is the interest which is almost encapsulating that.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't just China. Really, I was interested in people. Why do people do the things they do? What different layers to behavior are there? Just trying to understand what we're doing. Why is stuff the way it is? I recommend it to anyone. It hasn't necessarily been useful for a job, but it changed my life. I became a lot more liberal. I started to see that we are all, human. We are all the same, essentially. Any baby could be born or placed in any other culture and it would grow up. We don't have an innate culture when we're born. We don't have anything that is like, a British person will always like tea, even if they grow up in South Africa. No, no, it's just
hard to believe, cultural. But I think you're right.
It is not in our blood as much as we would think it is.
Yeah.
So then I went to China to teach English as this naive 18-year-old.
So this is before you've gone to university?
Before I've gone to university.
That takes courage, doesn't it? To go to China at the age of 18.
I just decided. I found a company online that was like, yep, I'm happy to go there. I wanted to go where the HSBC advert was, with those cliffs. And you've got that fisherman with the birds that he takes. I don't know if you remember that HSBC advert.
I don't think I do remember that one.
It's beautiful. So it's these karst hills that seem to just jut out of the ground, and a river, and a cormorant fisherman who would use the birds and tie loosely a string around their neck, release them into the water. They would come back with a fish caught there. He would take it out and keep it, and he used them to fish. And it's a long tradition in this area. And I thought, well, I'm going there. So I taught English, and I was a terrible teacher because I hadn't done a TEFL course. And this is where I think now you look at gap years or things and you realise, wow, the arrogance of this white girl just coming from another country thinking, I'll be able to teach English because I can speak it. It's much more difficult to teach it. And I really struggled with that. But I was there for 4 months and I really liked it. I got into the food. My parents came out after and we travelled around China or different parts. And I've had a little bit of the language, so I felt a lot more able to help them navigate things. And then I came back. And I went to Durham and I went to University College, so I got to live in a castle.
Which is great, right?
Oh, that's great fun. That's just a bit of fun, isn't it? I was a princess. I had long hair at the time. I'm like, I'm Rapunzel.
I must say, when I was applying for university, I did apply to Durham. I didn't end up going there. But Where
did you go first? Was it Oxford?
I went to Cambridge.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't have a castle as a college, unfortunately, although some of them are somewhat castle-like.
Incredible, yes. Some of them are incredible. Which college did you go to?
Well, I went to Churchill College, which is actually a very modern one. But was probably more my vibe in that it had sort of quite a few people from state schools.
Oh, yeah.
And wasn't too posh, and that sort of probably helped me a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah,
it came an interesting place. I didn't apply to Oxford or Cambridge because their anthropology courses are not that you have to specialise in your second year as to whether you want to be cultural or biological. And I wanted to do both, and Durham did both. I wanted to be far from home, and it's a small place in a part of the UK I'd never lived or even been to. So I wanted to kind of venture out, and it was smaller, so I felt like I'd get a more intimate experience. And with the collegiate system not being like Oxford or Cambridge, it's not academically, it's more like having different places to live and different welfare, but academically your college wasn't important. It's not like you had tutors who were you had people assigned to you in your college, but it's not taught. There was no teaching element in the college.
So was this a happy period? How was Amelia the high achiever
Yeah.
doing at this point? How were you sort of coping with university?
Oh God, I actually really struggled. I do look back with it with good memories, but I did struggle. I was still this rule follower. I was still wanting to seek out right and wrong, and with all the things I was learning, I was thinking, right now I've got the right answer. I was wrong before, being all right wing. This is now
so almost replacing the old set of kind of doctrines or dogmas with just an alternative set, rather than this sort of maybe something different, a bit more kind of being able to see the kind of overall picture, how all of these different viewpoints are fitting together into something bigger.
No,
not yet.
That did not happen. I was part of African singing and drumming. That was probably the one creative thing I did. I didn't do any acting. I didn't join the improv scene. I didn't join the comedy scene. I knew people in it, and I'd go and watch them, but I just thought, well, no. And I think
so. Why hadn't that particular interest? Because doing improv with you, there's something about you. You have an amazing presence on stage, and you're very comfortable performing in front of people. So I'm curious as to why that wasn't ready to
thinking I wasn't good enough. That's it. I just thought, no, I'm not good enough. So why would I do that?
So there was a bit of an interest or a desire.
I thought I'd like to go on stage and do some acting. I'm just like, no, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I would go to the debates. So I joined the Durham Union Society, and I'd go to debates. And I never took a debate course because I thought, oh, they're all going to be private school people and they're all going to be really good at debating, even though I did a little bit debating in my grammar school. I was like, oh, no. So I would just make floor speeches. And that's where, the debates happen, everyone's done their thing, and then you get to kind of put across your opinion at the end. And so I would gladly stand up and make quite an impassioned speech about how I felt about the debate or raise some questions or whatever. And I'd often, the times I did, I would win the best floor speech of the whatever, but I just never, it was fear. It was fear. I thought I wasn't good enough. Just low self-esteem, I think. Just thinking I wasn't good enough, that what I was going to do. I mean, I didn't know what would happen. I didn't think through it. I just thought, I didn't audition for any oboe parts in anything. No. Wasn't good enough. No. I'd do stuff I'd never done before other than performance. I tried rowing.
Yeah.
I did that for a year. But I struggled in my second year. I almost quit after Easter. And then I was about to quit. And I got to the point where I was like, if I quit now, then it's all over. So anything I do from now is a win, even if I fail, because at least I'm still going. And it freed me up.
A sense of freedom suddenly.
Yes.
Yeah, because you sort of looked in the eye the possibility of leaving. And
of completely dropping it all.
I think what you're describing is probably quite common, really. It chimes a lot with my experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my experience at Cambridge was one where I felt very inadequate a lot of the time. Obviously surrounded by very clever people.
Other brilliant, clever people.
Well, I mean, up until that point, I guess I'd been...
Had you been top of your class?
Yeah, so I'd been used to being academically high achieving, and you get quite used to that, and it's difficult then to adjust to the reality of being...
I'm actually mid of all these...
Just very, very average, really.
That's tough for the self-esteem.
It's tough, isn't it? And, Cambridge obviously has huge history and a huge sense of it being a very privileged place to be, and very, very clever people. A lot to deal with. I found it very tough to adjust to. And up until that point, I'd been used to being taught and spoon-fed and told what to do. And there was also this thing at Cambridge, which was almost like, you're at Cambridge, you're clever. You just get thrown into difficult situations and figure it out. A bit like improv.
Whoa!
I found it intimidating. I found it
it's a pressure
bewildering.
Cooker. You have short terms there.
You do. You have 8
and it's not
terms.
Just you're at Cambridge, so you should be able to handle this stuff. It's not a case of here, deal with it, see what happens. No, it's here, deal with it and be great.
Yeah.
It's not unlike improv. You don't have to be great.
Yes, that's a key distinction, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
you had to succeed. It wasn't just see how it goes and you can cope, whatever. It was like, no, you're going to thrive also.
And also, I regret this, but I think I experienced it very much as a sort of individual solo challenge. It was like Anthony versus the system. And I had to just find a way to pass my exams. And it became more about survival than actually love of the subject,
Thriving, yeah.
you know, or even the non-academic things. It just became about this sort of crazy, I'm going to find a way to get a 2-1.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter anymore whether I learn anything about computer science.
Yeah.
It's just, I am going to find a way to survive this exam and get through it. Looking back, that's a bit of a regret for me. And I'd have loved to have lent more into both the sort of opportunities available for me for things like performing. I wonder what the improv scene in Cambridge was like. You know, I didn't even come across it. And then also in the academic side of it, I wish at least I'd formed more of a sort of working with others, struggling together. My tendency, which was really exaggerated at that point of my life, was just to sort of try and cope by myself and rely on myself. And I wasn't very good at asking for help. So I was slow to raise my voice and say, help, I'm struggling, I'm drowning, I'm failing, I can't do this. So I just tried to carry on coping, you know. I found a way of succeeding, but what that success really was just hacking the system, trying to get a 2-1, trying to keep my head above water. Not ultimately really a very long-term, satisfying, rewarding way of engaging with things. In a way, I'd love to be able to go back now and have another go.
Yeah.
But it doesn't quite work like that always.
No, and at the stage I'm at now, I can very easily, because I could say very similar things to you. I wish I could have gone to university and not been so worried about the essays I was writing and actually be very interested in them rather than panicking to be like, is this good enough? Do I need to put this in here? Well, what sounds good? Well, I know that they mentioned that, so I'm going to do this. How about I just research the subject and write on it? That would have been great. I think that every time I go to study something is, wow, I just won't have any pressure on me and I'll just be able to enjoy what I'm reading. No, there's always pressure. When there's a deadline, there's always pressure associated.
Shall we try and fast forward then a little bit?
Yeah, now I went to China again.
We've got to touch on that. So you went back to China.
Yeah, so after graduating, I worked for the university for a year and applied for a scholarship with the British Council. And I got a scholarship to study Mandarin. So I was like, yes! Because now I get to do the Chinese part of what I wanted to do initially, but I have the anthropology background. And so I went over there to study and life felt so free at that point where I felt like I could literally do anything. And so I made snap decisions about things. I kind of blew off my second semester and I got into a relationship with a Jordanian guy and I was doing modeling for some you could get a job out in China just as a white person. You know, I just wore a hoodie for a tea company and went to a tea thing and you get paid for it just because you're young and white. And I look back and there are many problematic things about that, but it's very much kind of a part of survival because you never quite integrate. It's very obvious that you're not from China, so integration is quite difficult. And I look back and I'm like, wow, I was really capable. How did I do that? And yeah, I did. But the person I became then after I moved back home. And this is where I feel like some of my life took a weird sliding doors thing. Because one of the opportunities I had was to work as a translator to try and help this guy with a chemical company deal with people in China. And I thought, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then there was a more secure account executive position in a kind of small software company. And I went for an interview. And so I went for that job. It was a bit safer.
What was going on there in that decision?
External views of success. What other people might think was the better job. I still learnt loads and it was a great company. I won the 2017 Rising Star of the Year for tech companies outside of London as someone who was doing really well in what they were doing. Yeah. And
so still achieving.
Still high achieving. I would be in the meetings with the directors of companies or the marketing directors of companies, and I was helping scope out development and sell development options. And I was really into it. It's where I met my current partner, Nick. He was the developer. But yeah, and then that's when I had the abortion with someone else and I just broke. I couldn't work there anymore. And since then, I pretty much haven't been the same.
Yes. So one of the things we wanted to talk about is, obviously there are these moments in life that people go through where they're really hit by something very difficult that brings them low. And these moments, I think, can often be ones you look back on as almost there's like a before and after, right?
Yes.
Everything changes.
Yes. And you had that.
And I had that as well. I had very much this very rough period of my life where I was quite unwell, lots of mental health struggles. I was hit by this thing and it felt like everything had changed. I was just a new person defined by this new reality. And it was frightening and it was a lot to adjust to. And I think perhaps like you, for me, it was about a breaking point and a realization that everything I'd been trying to do up until that point wasn't really sufficient. And I wasn't able to sustain it. So, it can be one circumstance or another that perhaps leads an individual person to this point of crisis.
Yes. It's not the same path for everyone to a breaking point, you're right.
And in some cases, maybe it's a big thing. In other cases, maybe it's quite a small thing, but it's not so much about the thing even. It's about the fact that was the point when that person broke.
Absolutely.
And then there's what follows from that, isn't there? Which is often
mourning the loss of the person you were before.
Yes.
I mean, I had a huge sense of loss for this person I thought externally, by external view, was extremely capable and high achieving, very capable, confident. And I felt like I just want to get back to who that is. Where I'm at now, I don't want to go back to her. I've taken the opportunity that life presented by becoming broken and sought out a true sense of self and a sense of peace at being me, that I don't have to prove anything to anyone. There is nothing to prove. There is only to go through life being self-compassionate, compassionate to others, and being in that moment, each moment that you're in, not jumping ahead 10 years, not looking back to the past. Feeling centered in the here and now. Like I feel very much in the moment with you now. This is the only thing that's happening. This is the only conversation I'm in. I'm not having a second one in my head about something else or thinking about what are you going to say next? What are potentially the things you're going to talk about and trying to come up? No. We're right here, right now. Improvising.
It's one of the things I love about doing these podcasts, actually. It creates this great sense of attention.
Yeah.
I'm often really exhausted after I do the conversations because I think it is requiring quite a lot just to be fully present and listening and really inhabiting that moment together. I just want to ask you then, without perhaps feeling you have to go into too much detail about some of the low points you experienced, how would you summarize the Amelia who you had to leave behind and this grieving process you were talking about of maybe a realization that this is no longer working for me, the standards I was trying to live by, the ideals I was trying to live up to, it's not sustainable, it's not me, it's not working.
Yeah, initially I completely didn't imagine that the breaking of me was just me then lying on a dirt barren land. And it's like I wasn't aware that I was in a barren land. I was scrabbling the dirt for any life. That's what it felt like. So I had an abortion. I forget when it was actually, what year it was, 2018. And it just felt like I had no understanding of what was happening to me. I think looking back, I think I got PTSD just from the medical procedure. It was like a procedural thing, let alone it being a difficult decision. And so I was just scrabbling for safety, any sense of safety. But I couldn't regulate myself. It was like I was climbing up the walls. I thought I was going mad. And there was no sense of, there was frustration. I don't know if there was grief yet. I wasn't saying goodbye to the past me. I was scrabbling for her without realizing she didn't exist anymore. Yeah. But I just wanted that sense of control back.
Yes. Because... So it sounds like you were describing this situation where something is happening before you're quite ready for it. So initially there's this huge struggle to accept it and to know what to do because you feel like something about your very identity is being taken away from you and sort of crumbling.
Yes.
And it's really scary.
Yes.
Right?
I never thought I would be in that situation. I never wanted to be. I never thought I'd make that decision. Yes, I did. So I think it shook me to my core. I think it's a difficult moral question. I still believe I made the right decision, but I mean, that's a difficult decision to make.
And also you were describing as well how earlier in your life you'd been quite morally
right and wrong.
It sounds like you had
life began at conception. I still believe that. I still believe that because, yeah, I mean, this is a whole other debate. I think it's a right that women should have, but it's everyone's own choice what they do. But yes, I had morally decided a while ago that I didn't necessarily think it was right. But at the same time, even just as a woman, I remember in our religious studies classes, I would think, I don't think I would know until I'm in that situation. I don't think anyone can say what they're due. So I was aware of that. I did have a little bit of ambiguity. Plus, I'd been through university at that point. But I definitely struggled with that. Even though I was a lot more liberal in my mindset, I still struggled with what happened. And then, I mean, I mentioned briefly before we started this podcast that then a couple of years after that, in 2020, I'm a survivor of sexual assault, of rape, and that broke me even more, if that's possible. I didn't recover from the abortion before this happened. So I feel like I was on a tumbling, broken, like really just scrabbling through life, desperately trying to find some element of control, some safety. That meant I would try and control the people around me. So I still had these old habits from my life before these difficulties, and yet it wasn't working. I didn't feel safe. I felt vulnerable and scared all the time. I felt I was on defense mode. I was ready if someone said something, I'd be right there at their throat. I would get them because I need to have control. I need to control what you think, because if you think the same of me, then I'm safe. All of it was about massive levels of control that stifle other people, that stifle creativity, that stifle anything outside the blinkers you've got on because you think this is how you will be safe.
And exhausting to try and keep that up for yourself, really.
Just untruth, not reflective of life.
Yeah.
As I now know. But then someone put me in contact with a therapist they had. One of the things we joke about a lot is something she says to us, which is notice. Just notice how you feel about something. You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to notice how you feel about something. And Fraser was like, right, tell me, I'm going to win therapy. Tell me what to do. I'm going to do all the things and then I'm going to be so much better. No, it doesn't work like that. You can't pass the exam in therapy. You can't make the therapist like you. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be the best person she's ever therapized. Right?
So you're sort of looking for a formula. How do I succeed in therapy? I'm going to convince you that I'm the best possible patient I could possibly be and I'm going to do all the right things. But they're not impressed by that, right?
No, they're like, okay.
What are you trying to do?
You're not making progress. Yeah, like what's happening right now? And so I started to notice how I felt about things. And it sounds silly, but I don't think I've ever known how I felt about things. Truly. I knew what other people expected of me. I knew what I thought was good in others. I thought what would bring me security. So I seek those things. Not how does that make me feel? And it can be the smallest thing. It doesn't have to be like someone posing at one of life's great questions to me and me thinking, how do I feel about that? No. Do you want a cup of tea? Before, I wouldn't know if I wanted one or not. I wouldn't know. If someone said, are you hungry? I'd have to think and be like, oh, well, it's no trouble. No, I'm not. I would be thinking, whereas, am I happy? How do I feel right now? Can we take a moment? Are you willing to do this exercise where we just notice however you're feeling right now? What are you feeling? What are you feeling?
Well, I think that came at a good time. I was noticing that I feel a little bit tense in some ways. I think because I'm trying to listen very attentively to you and sort of sit up straight. So in a way, it was nice just to allow myself for a minute just to sort of sit back and let go of that a little bit. It's interesting sort of noticing that slight physical tension.
Yeah, I feel that too. The same thing. I don't know whether it's that we're... I felt that tension as well, but much more just physical tension. I also feel short of breath. It's interesting, but I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable here with you. I feel comfortable talking. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I suppose that's what a podcast is.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of talking in a podcast, really. It's sort of, I mean, if we just sat there for an hour and a half and tried to work out how we were feeling, it might be quite a good exercise for us, but it might not make a great podcast. I think it's interesting and worthwhile to take a bit of a pause, because I guess if you're having an intense conversation, that's a situation where you can get a little bit carried away like a snowball, gathering momentum, and there's an element of sort of it being useful to step back and just say, okay,
where are we at?
Where are we at? One thing I wanted to respond to was I too struggle, I think, to be good at recognizing how I'm feeling about things. And it's something I've worked on as well. I notice sometimes I get irritated when I'm asked a question, which is often a very trivial thing, like, do you want a cup of tea? And for whatever reason, it's like I don't have the capacity to sort of step into myself and work out whether I want a cup of tea. And I don't feel able to do that either. So instead, I'm just sort of responding almost in a sort of arbitrary or robotic sort of way, like, yes, I'll have a cup of tea, or no, I don't want it. And I still find myself doing that. And I think certain things can make me more sort of tipped into that frame of mind where I'm a little bit less grounded. I'm a bit anxious. So for me, I'm trying to, I guess, become better at noticing that.
Better.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to notice it and have ways in which I can perhaps interrupt that pattern. And you were just demonstrating perhaps one method, which is to calm yourself, sort of listen to your body, maybe focus on your breathing.
Which I have to say, before being broken, I would hear this stuff, like, get into your body, connect. I'd be like, shut up! Sorry, loud. I would really reject it.
Yeah.
I would just think it's fluffy.
Fluffy nonsense.
Yeah, fluffy nonsense. Get on with it. Get on with it. And now it's completely different. The forcing yourself. Once you break, I think some of the old habits that you utilised to be who you were don't work. You have to learn new ones. And I think I'm learning a much more sustainable way of being authentically myself, but being able to take care of myself, not beat myself up, not push myself too far. Notice when I'm feeling like I'm being pushed too far.
Yeah. And perhaps it takes that real low point to create this openness.
Yeah.
Maybe I could learn something from a breathing exercise or a meditation practice. And actually, I do kind of want to not feel like I'm feeling now. So you're given the spur to try something. And then you start experiencing the beginnings of the possibility of something different.
Yes. I'm just going to ask you a question, actually, if that's okay. When you had your break, what happened to your creativity, or any creativity you had when you had that break?
During that period, I think I wrote a bit because I had all of these painful and difficult ideas in my head and just a lot going on in my head. I think writing them down and journaling was a useful outlet. But I wasn't doing much beyond that. And I don't think really at that point I had many creative outlets. I have far more of them in my life now. It's really the last few years that I've started to understand that for me, creative outlets are key to my happiness. And part of the problem, I think, was that I wasn't finding those outlets and I wasn't able to find the opportunities I needed to do creative things. So I was sort of drying up and shriveling up a little bit. And I feel now that I've understood that much more clearly for myself. So I sort of know what my role is. It's like, I have to prioritize this, which is hard because I have a job that's not, I mean, computer programming has a creative side to it, but it's not really the kind of creative job of my dreams. But because I know that creative outlets are so important to me, I've readjusted lots of things in my life so that I'm making more space for improv, for example, but also writing, podcasting. You know, these sorts of things really energize me. They really excite me. And I've been learning to try and follow more those inspirations, those moments where I get really excited, because I need to follow those. That's one of the keys for me to my own mental well-being, to keep excited, to keep...
Because you know how you feel when you're in that space. And those are good feelings to feel like. I don't like qualifying feelings as good or bad because they're all real. If they come up, they're there. But great to follow, as you said, follow that feeling, follow that this is something that I get energy from. Oh, I notice that when I do this, I feel this. It's part of noticing the feelings that you're experiencing and being like, oh, I can return to that because I can choose to approach this again, this part of the creativity.
Yeah, I want to tell you about some things that happened last year for me, which was I rediscovered some feelings that I hadn't had since I was a child. And it was great. So I recovered a sense of real excitement about creative projects, which I'd had as a child. I never had any problems filling the summer holidays because I would sit on the floor and draw comics all holiday, you know. I had these outlets as a child which really were able to kind of absorb me. But I'd gradually, slowly forgotten that it was possible to feel that way. I just got used to the sort of humdrum work. And then in my evenings, it was sort of, oh, I'm tired. I'm just going to watch Netflix. I'm just going to, it's enough effort to cook my dinner and handle my chores. And I think I was in this like vicious cycle of energy sapping and just channeling what energy I had into work and to some extent social things as well, because obviously I recognized that that was beneficial and important as well. But what I found is that by re-diverting some of my energies into creative things, I get this effect where I'm overall more energized. So I have more energy for the other things as well. So it's like a virtuous cycle for me. So it's paradoxical. What I'm starting to realize for myself is that it's better not to rest too much, because then I get sucked into this sort of negative, tired, bored, uninspired thing. Whereas if I'm feeding the ideas and the projects and the creative outlets, for example, I do usually 20 to 30 minutes of writing every morning, and that helps me get my thoughts down on paper, and it helps me capture things I'm excited about and make resolutions to do things. So, 2 weeks ago I said, I thought about doing a podcast with Amelia. I'd really like to do it. I'm going to ask her. Let's make it happen. So it's really my morning journaling that feeds into this process of encouraging myself to do the things I like. And that creates a sense of energy for me, which is really helpful for my overall sense of positivity and mental health. Can't remember what question I was responding to there.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully that was somewhat relevant.
Yeah, I asked about after your break what happened to your creativity.
Yeah.
And it seems like it took a bit of a hit.
It took a hit, and it's really, I think, this creative renewal for me, if let's call it that, is something that's been coming on gradually and is related to the other things I've been working on in my life, particularly with therapy. So I worked a lot with my therapist on trying to become more spontaneous, because I'm a very...
Are you a planner?
I'm a very thinky person. There's a lot going on up here. I'm often in my head a lot. And I'm the kind of person who would sit and listen and scrutinize, and then after half an hour of silence would deliver this sort of epic summary or conclusion, sort of draw everything together in some kind of memorable,
It's a useful
eloquent...
skill.
It's a good skill. But it's been very helpful for me to learn the value of just starting to say things when they're not fully formulated thoughts.
Were you quite quiet then? Would you be very quiet?
Very introverted, very quiet.
And then when you did say it was something of substance.
Yeah, so people would think I was this very deep guy.
Yeah.
Because I'd be quite mysterious and quiet, and then I'd come out with profound and intelligent realizations. And also growing up, I was, in a fairly religious household, thinking about deep things and thinking about philosophical and religious questions. And that all led to this persona of seriousness, which I'm not saying was all bad. And there are good things about being a deep thinking, serious person, which I cherish and want to hold on to. But for me, in recent years, it's been incredibly fruitful to get back in touch with the more playful, spontaneous, funny side of myself. Right? Yeah.
If you're always this version of you, and I do say version because it's all in you, right? Yeah. It's all there. I mean, it's restrictive. Equally, if you were expected to be funny, hilarious, and just it would be ridiculous. I think appreciating those two sides of you will help you be more creative, because hopefully you can kind of marry the two up, and that's when you're going to get this probably quite structured plan of something creative and playful, which I think can happen. For me, when I had my traumas, my ability to imagine went to zero. My brain shut down, and it was only thinking about stay safe now, stay in bed, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. It's just don't go. I mean, if I could sum it, it's don't go anywhere. Don't move. Don't do anything. Yeah. Because there's risk associated. And so my imagination just wasn't there. I couldn't imagine the future. I literally couldn't imagine beyond what I was seeing. It was a really weird experience.
Yeah, it sounds it.
But what's great about improv is the journey through that. Journey through not being able to imagine, not being able... And I notice when I don't feel safe and I'm trying to improvise, it goes... The imagination just cuts out. If there's something that has made me feel unsafe, or maybe I've got a trigger just from something innocent someone said or did, I'll shut down. I really struggle. And so for me, improv, when you feel in the moment, when I feel okay in the moment, safe in the moment, or even a little bit of unsafe, I found a bit of safety in the uncertainty. There's safety in that. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to understand everything that's going to happen. Or I really enjoy that place of uncertainty now where I can feel safe. It's like exposure to things that feel unsafe but are actually perfectly safe has been great for me. Like cold water, getting into a shower of cold water. Your whole body just wants to go. But actually, you are safe. The cold water in that shower is not going to harm me. Exposure, it's one of the great things of therapy, is exposure to something that feels incredibly unsafe that is actually safe, and finding safety in it again, realizing, going through it and realizing you're safe. That's what improv gave me initially, was I'm just going to turn up, I'm just going to do something, and we're just going to see what happens.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about improv specifically, and how it was that you started on this discovery that improv was helpful from that starting point you've described of real trauma and, almost being scared to engage with life.
Yes.
So that was your starting point when things were at their
really
most bleak.
Scared to engage with anything.
And so how did you discover improv, and what happened in this process?
You don't know how I discovered improv?
I'd like to hear a bit.
So Andy Tully told me about it.
Andy Tully.
Hello, Andrew. Yeah, so he first mentioned it to me, and we've known him for a few years. So Nick, my partner, knows Andy through various poker things. So we play poker every now and then. Great fun. And he just mentioned it. He said, I've started going, and I think it would be right up your street. And I was like, yeah, I think it would be too, actually.
So this was, I guess, a little over a year ago?
Yep. This is literally...
maybe the end of 2023? Or
Yeah, it was end of November 23. And I started going to Imran's Wednesday groups. And... oh, my goodness. I was so scared the first one. Do you remember the first session you went to?
I do.
I was terrified.
Yeah, I found it very scary to begin with.
Until I was on the stage. And then I was fine. So I turned up and I'm there and I'm like, a friend drops me off. I didn't want to go alone. I'm there and then Andy's there and I'm like, oh, okay, And then I get up and I just start doing crazy stuff. And I was like, I can just do the really silly stuff that I used to do with my brother in the car when we would go on long journeys. And I'd be coming up with all these stories just out of nowhere. And I've always been quite extrovert. I've always been a people person, always around people and enjoying the connections with people and being able to riff off ideas, whatever they are. And I think sometimes that can be very annoying for people, but it would just be a natural instinct. So I felt like this natural instinct to just kind of take what's going on and just roll with it. I think I had it in me the whole time. Now I've learned some of the skills that Paul has taught us in Improv in 6 Acts. I feel even more freedom within structure. I feel even more freedom with it. I feel more capable, confident, but it's how I feel on stage. There are no nerves when I'm on stage performing. It's before. And the first performance I ever did, I felt this anticipation. Well, actually, I felt like this terrible nerves. I wanted to shut myself away again. That fear kicked in. I was like, no. And my therapist said something about noticing the feelings, like I just said before. And I tried to notice how I was actually feeling. And it was anticipation. It was excitement. Yeah, there were some nerves, but actually it was the build-up. It wasn't fear. It wasn't the fear that I had to lock myself away in case anything bad happened again. No, it was the type of fear that you're actually excited about it. And that feels very similar in the body. Your heart rate goes up, your breathing's different. But that could be anticipation, and it was. And so I did it. And then when I was on stage, 0 nerves, nothing. I didn't feel any nervousness. I just was in that moment. I was there and I was enjoying myself. And I would say some of the things that resonated with me coming from that broken place, that fearful place. I know you talk about the play aspect of it, that really resonates with you. For me, it was getting in the moment because I'd struggled to do that. My brain was either in the past, replaying over and over again things that had happened.
Yeah.
Or it was trying desperately to see a future where I wasn't the way I currently was, that I couldn't see because it was locked away. And my therapist had talked about breathing, trying to be in the moment, trying to notice how you feel. And then I go to improv and you spend a few minutes walking around the room, feeling the weight transfer from foot to foot, feeling what your clothes feel like on you. And I realized it was really getting me in the moment. I realized that that's where you can be creative, is in the here and now. That's where safety is. Safety isn't in the future. Safety isn't in the past Amelia I've been trying to claw back to. That's not where safety is. Safety almost doesn't exist, actually, in the way that I'm seeking it. In the way I was seeking it before, with the control, with the intellectualizing everything, knowing right and wrong from external sources. That actually doesn't exist. That's just in my head. And so when I started to be in the moment, and when I started to just be able to use how I felt in the moment to improvise, it changed everything.
Yeah.
And you collaborate with someone else, and suddenly there's a magic there. There's this moment where someone puts something in front of you and you're like, oh.
What's your take on the way in which improv can give you an opportunity to learn things about yourself? Have you noticed that?
I think I'm an extreme improviser, and by that I mean I've taken on these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things very seriously and very much to heart.
Yeah.
Let go. I am so good at that one now, because if there's something I think, oh, I wish I'd said that, I'm just like, boop, no, it's done now, isn't it? It's over. It's done.
So no regrets, no holding on
regrets.
to...
I did to begin with. Sometimes I'll go home and I think, oh, that would have been really funny. But it didn't happen. It was just the moment. That's what... So it's complete acceptance as well. The complete acceptance of whatever it is that happens, without judgment, without regretting it. You talked about, maybe regretting some of the stuff at university. A few years ago, I would have been 100% with you. I'd have been like, oh, I wish, why didn't I do that? What would have happened if I'd... And now, oh, I can accept that that's what it was. It's got me to where I am now. This is my journey. This is whatever's happened. I'm okay with that. I mean, I've had to accept worse things than missing out on, doing improv at university. And I don't mean that on like, oh, well, worse things have happened. But equally, I can let that go. I really can let that go. The anti-perfectionist league that Paul talks about, that resonated with me as well. I know that I can just go up and offer. And if someone offers something, if someone doesn't hear me, okay, fine. In our workshops, I think I get more annoyed about that than if we're in a show. If we're in a show, I am so like, does not even matter. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's just keep being in the moment. Let's keep doing what we're doing, because the more you linger, the less good you are going to be at being in the moment sometime else. But I suppose maybe in the workshops, I mean, maybe there's sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't get that. Why did that happen like that? But that's more as performers trying to increase our performance skill, trying to improve our rapport together, how we work together. I mean, I think those are things that you can work on without it being too, not encapsulating all these principles. But spot successes I found actually useful just in my everyday life. I try and spot my own successes and allow myself time to be like, oh, I'm proud of myself for that. I would never have been proud of myself before. I thought arrogance, that's arrogant. Don't be arrogant, Amelia. No. It's so important to acknowledge the things you've done that you're proud of, or things that you're really happy you did, or any kind of success, not external but internal, that you like, not about what anyone else might like, whether what job you have, whatever. So I'm spotting my own successes. I like that it's collaborative in that spotting the success in someone else. You're building someone else up. It's truly collaborative. We're not competitive. We're not outdoing each other.
Yeah.
It's all supportive. It's all trying to just support each other's offers. I mean,
make your partner look good.
Yeah.
His sense that it's not about outshining anybody, because you're making something together, right? Everything good that you spot is an opportunity to sort of seize onto it and enhance it and incorporate it and latch onto it.
When does anyone do that in business? The amount of ownership people take over their ideas. Exactly. I mean, patents for everything or whatever. I had that idea. Yeah. That was me.
Yeah.
I like that we're away with that, because my success is dependent on everyone's, really. The sharing of that, the collaborative. But improv matched up so well with my therapy because of this ability to be in the moment.
Sounds like of all the principles, that is the one which holds it all together for you.
Because you can't improvise if you're not there, if you're away in the past or in the future. And it makes such a difference. It's a form of mindfulness, doing improv, I think. Because you can't notice what someone else is doing. I can't notice how you're sitting or what you're doing with your face or your tone if I'm not here. And yet I wasn't there for years. I wasn't in the moment for years.
Would you say you have flow experiences doing improv? Is that a term you're...
Ooh, this is interesting. I mean, definitely there are times I feel like I'm on a roll.
Do you remember typically everything that's happened in the show?
No.
Or the moments which almost become a blank.
Yeah, there are moments that I'm just in it. Yeah, is that flow state then? Because I don't know. There are sometimes people mention it. I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. Or
well, we were having a conversation at Improv in 6 Acts, and Paul was saying how sports people, I think he was saying that improvisers actually sometimes describe being so immersed in a scene that afterwards they have totally no memory of it. And they were associating that with flow state, total immersion.
Yeah.
Getting completely lost in what you're doing, feeling almost transported. I guess it's almost like you lose a sense of your own consciousness because you're so focused on what's happening. Yeah. I don't know if I've experienced that very much, but of my shows, there was one where it went weirdly well. Something happened where the ideas were just flowing like a fountain. Wow. And also for me there's a confidence thing which happens, which is trusting my gut, and when something comes, just going for it, seizing the moment, like noticing this is what's needed now, and having the confidence just to do it. For me, like, I find moments where that works better, and I get more into this flow state, and I don't consistently achieve that, I find. So it's sort of like I'm trying to get there, but I slip a bit out of it.
You can't maintain that, though. You can't maintain always having this perfect timing, but you are a dream to perform with. I think you're brilliant. I'm there and I'm like, wow. I mean, obviously I don't say wow on stage because it takes everyone out of it, but I'm like, Anthony showed up. Yeah, really. I suppose I hadn't thought about that, because I will just automatically do what you said. As I said, I'm quite an extremist in this sense, because, you know, if we do freeze tag, I won't have anything until I'm literally in that position, and then I'm there and I do whatever comes. But if I see an interesting position, I'll freeze and then I'll come up with something. I will just go with it. And whether that means I'm doing something silently for a long time because I haven't thought of anything to say, I'll just follow whatever movement feels right based on whatever, you know, there is no planning ahead. Yeah. There is no thinking, oh, maybe that scene could, or maybe I could be, or a character, maybe I should do more of that a little bit.
It's very interesting hearing like different experiences of how we approach improv, and realizing that there are subtle differences. I think you are a little bit more immediate than me.
Yeah.
There's something about you which is just so spontaneous.
Yeah.
Whereas spontaneity is something I have to work quite hard for, you know. So I have this tendency to want to pre-plan, and I know that goes against good improv. So I'm often trying to shut it down. So I'm like, don't make a plan. Try and be more spontaneous.
But if something comes to your head, that's not wrong.
No, so I think it's you know, when you're playing improv games and you know your turn's coming.
And you got to think.
And you're like, and I try sometimes just to shut it off and just do whatever strikes me in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I feel somehow that's an improviser's skill, really, and I want to cultivate that, and I want to act against being overly concerned with preparation. You know, at the same time, a good improviser knows how to prepare so that they're able to face the moment better, I think.
And they're not going to blank, right?
Right.
Because the worry is when you have nothing prepared that you're just going to blank.
And how do you face that? How do you deal with blanking?
I blanked properly when I felt unsafe one time. I completely blanked, and I knew why that was, because I suddenly didn't feel comfortable and it shut down my ability. So I think that's a trigger, and especially when you've been through certain traumas, I think you can very immediately, your brain will go back there for safety, and you have to then slowly bring it out again through grounding techniques and everything, because it goes somewhere else. So I've had that, but one time I did go blank. It was actually one of the first things. It was when Paul asked us to get from A to B between this bobbly thing, this bobbly thing, and we just had to get from A to B in a different way than the person before us had done it. And we did it a few times, and we did it again. And I think I just got there. And I had something in my head. And then as soon as I stood there, it went. And so instead of having an empty head and just doing whatever came next, I was trying to recapture what I had thought of. I kind of have blanked on stage as well. But often people notice when you've kind of gone quiet, or I try and do movement maybe. But after that, anything. I literally will do anything.
Well, this is it.
I don't embarrass easily, so I will do anything. And it's better than nothing. It's an offer.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get better at and learn is that when you blank, it's okay to let the audience in on your little moment of terror and fishing around for something, because it's quite funny. It's quite funny to see someone in that situation. And then B, doesn't really matter what you do. So partly, I think for me, the blanking is to do with pressure I'm putting on myself about still this sort of censoring expectations. So really just doing, as you say, whatever does come into your head, anything really is an offer that then if you're working together and your fellow improviser just sees what there is and then they make, a follow-up offer.
Yeah.
So I guess it's sort of defeating the freeze monster almost.
Yes.
It's sort of, it doesn't really exist in a sense, I think a lot of it has to do with the ideas we bring about what's acceptable or what's funny or what's good enough. But I am interested in something you said earlier, you've been talking about it, which is the conditions that bring you into this place where everything's working and you're in the moment versus the conditions which can pull you out of that. And you've actually described how if you get triggered, it can quite drastically pull you out of it into a place where you dissociate. Whereas I think in my experience, it's perhaps less dramatic than that. But what I notice is I slide into this sort of, I'm not quite as present. I'm a bit anxious. It's like it's slipping away from me a bit. I don't feel as comfortable.
Yeah.
So
is it tangible what happens to make that happen to you? Or is it difficult for you to identify what conditions make you go into that state?
It's still hard. And I sense for me, it's related to things about myself, which I'm exploring in therapy a little bit. So it's got for me this quality of having to look at myself a bit and try and figure out what's going on, which is why I sort of initially raised this question about do you sort of notice things about yourself while you're performing improv? I remember these status exercises where you're with a partner and one of them's high and one of them's low and you're doing a status swap, or you're having a competition to raise your status. I sort of noticed about myself the tendency to often adopt a low status sort of role because I feel more comfortable kind of playing down my position. So that's another way improv's helped me. It's like it gives me this playground to explore ways of behaving that don't come as naturally to me. So it's like in this scene, I'd quite like to behave like a total arsehole, That's quite fun.
Sometimes.
Yeah, so I think improv gives me space to explore perhaps things which in real life I'd always be like, I can't do that. I can't be like that. Yeah. So
I've always thought you're an arsehole, Nancy. If that helps. That's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I will do improv out in the world, right? I walked past someone and someone, accidentally tripped and then the friend kicked them on the back of the leg and I was like, oh, cheeky, should have done that. And I just will engage in conversation in a split moment or I'll say something and I enjoy that completely unexpected interaction where you get to connect with someone and have it. So I think I've always done improv.
Yeah.
It's leaked out of me into my everyday life, into whoever, whether it's a barista, anyone. I mean,
That's so interesting.
I will do it all the time.
For me and my sort of temperament and personality, it's harder for me to be like that in ordinary life. My tendency is to be quite polite and not want to impose myself too much. So for me, it's almost like the stage and the improv workshop is where I can go a bit wild and do all this stuff. No, I
do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting.
So I do that a lot. There'll be times when I don't want to interact with anyone, so I won't. I do it very much on how I'm feeling, and sometimes I'll just feel that way. And I'll just, if someone's playing a song on their phone down the street and I walk past them, I'll just start singing it. I don't really get embarrassed about these things. And I enjoy random interactions with people where it's another human being. I mean, this goes back to the anthropology. I'm fascinated by people. All people. Well, what happened if I poke you now? Do you know what I mean? It's this. I think I've always had this childlike interest in what people will do, and I like the idea that I could make someone smile just through a little part of their day, or even just some teenagers be like, "She was weird," and it just be like a nice little moment for someone to be like, and it's a nice moment, not someone getting annoyed at a car and pulling out in front of them. It's like some nice interactions, positive interactions with a stranger. That's why I love being a receptionist. So I think I've always had that. Improv just became a place to remind me of that because I wasn't like that after the traumas. I was scared to go outside. I once gave Nick bruises because we were walking through town and I was just gripping him so tightly because of how scared I was. Everything was spinning.
Yeah.
And it's like it's given me a little memory of who I was before all that. And it's given me a structure, you know. I would always want to bounce ideas off someone, but I might want to take it over too much and not share like some of the balance of it. Or
when you say it's given you a structure, so what do you mean? So you mean in an improv scene, these principles we've been talking about, like short-term taking, give a clearly defined sense of the boundaries and how to make it work where you're all helping each other.
Yeah, but it's not like these strict controls that I had on me before, like at the air training corps.
Yeah.
Or with music teachers or with school. And, you know, there is a very strong boundary of what you can and can't do. These are things that you can break these rules. There's nothing stopping us breaking them, but it becomes easier when you do them. So the tendency is to use them because it gets easier. It just gets knowing what things work. I don't feel like I have to memorize these things. I think they're things we need to be reminded of. They're principles that can help you in every situation. Yes.
You were saying to me earlier how you didn't used to think of yourself as creative.
Yeah.
How has improv changed that? Or how do you see yourself now when it comes to creativity?
I think now that I am very creative and quite a performer. I did not realize that I'm a performer. I'm quite a natural performer. I think I'm naturally quite expressive in my face, with my voice. And I just never thought that that was me. Because I'd seen other people do it, you know, universities see other people do it, or I didn't do very well at drama GCSE, so must be a dead end there. No, I've always done voices. I've always created characters. I mean, I will sit at home, Anthony, and I will be two farmers talking to each other.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That sounds quite good fun.
Am I trying to escape my own life by creating alternate personas?
I mean, I've been doing more of that since improv became such a big part
Have
of
you
my
got a
life.
character?
I've got voices.
Oh, can I meet one?
I've got farmer voices for sure.
Oh, you love that.
I've got loads of voices. I don't know. I just come up with anything really in a given moment.
You're Cockney.
Yeah. Yeah. I do quite a good scouse.
Whoa, that's actually good.
Yeah.
But are you from Liverpool?
Not exactly, though. Grew up in Lancashire, like. What?
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to learn that. I like to do a Yorkshireman or Manchester. Don't know which one it is because I would watch a lot of Coronation Street with my mum. I don't know. And also my voice goes deeper, doesn't it? I could be a woman. Yorkshire. Why would I do that? I am a woman. Why am I trying to put on a woman's voice?
So you've always done this kind of thing.
Always.
And you've always clearly liked performing.
Yes. And I, you know, at 5 years old in Australia, my dad tells the story of how we're on a boat going around Sydney Harbour, and there's some tourists that come up to me, and I'd just been watching Pocahontas, so I told these Japanese tourists, I was like, they were all around me, and I was like, yeah. So in England, we say hello by saying hello. I don't know if you remember Pocahontas, where she's like, Ngapo.
Oh, yes, I do.
Ngapo, and
I don't remember the words.
Yeah.
I remember the gesture.
I would just do stuff. I mean, I'd entertain my brother on the way to and from France when my grandma lived in the car, and I'd be coming up with like the demon in the clouds, like the black clouds were coming, and I just have always been this hyper expressive creative, and yet I at no point in my childhood, in my life, in school, was that ever encouraged. Was there ever something that was ever acknowledged or celebrated?
Yeah, it's extraordinary, really. I mean, it seems, in a sense, having met you in the last year when you've been doing all this improv, it just seems so bleedingly obvious that you're extremely creative.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of remarkable to hear you not having that key piece of information, you know.
Yeah, about myself.
Yeah.
Knowing that I loved engaging with others and being entertaining, but without wanting a spotlight necessarily. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this because I'm going to... No, it's just a natural thing that comes out of me in front of strangers and family, and I'll just enter in. But I think when I was young, I was quite up and down. So when I had these highs, I would be so engaged and I'm ready to play. Equally, if I went down, I would then be equally as shut down. You know, I was definitely a person of extremes. And I feel like through therapy, I feel like through this, there's a balance that is coming from it.
Yeah.
That there's an opportunity to be all this.
Yeah.
There's an outlet for all this. I don't have to be this to be liked. I can take a step back, take a bit of moment to resettle. I don't always have to be entertaining. And I think that's what this has given me, is that actually now I know there's a time in my week that I'm going to be in this place, and I can put all my energy into it then. So that having that in my life, having improv in my life, knowing that I will get the opportunity again to be in the moment and be creative and have fun is very good.
Yeah. That's sort of like I was saying earlier about these outlets, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like how important that is. Once you realize a little bit more, you grow in self-knowledge a bit about who you are and how you tick, then you can start to find these.
And like you were talking about with your creativity and noticing like that writing in the morning gives you this opportunity to really take a moment with yourself. That is something I'm trying to build up through meditation, is actually at multiple points throughout the day, just take a minute to try and reconnect with, I am Amelia and this is where I am right now. How do I feel? Don't have to be any which way. No judgment of how I feel. Just what is. Acceptance of what is.
Yeah, I definitely think we're describing different routes to the same kind of thing, really. A meditation practice, doing improv, and for me, writing down my thoughts, because I'm very...
There's fear associated with that for me.
I do get that. I think on the flip side, it can force you to give shape to what you're thinking.
Yes.
And it can force you to kind of not just go around in circles, but to take a step forward, because you've got something, you've captured it. And if you keep on doing it, you can start reshaping it a little bit. Okay, I have this thought, but is it true? Is it an interpretation that's really helpful? So you can start to challenge your own thinking a bit as well.
I have dipped in and out of journaling, but I always found I was writing it as if someone was going to read it back. How do you deal with that?
Well, I just hope that no one's ever going to read it back.
Would you ever burn them? I had an uncle that would write and then burnt it so that he literally knew that whatever he would write, it was getting it out. But then,
I mean, it's very much written for myself. There are fragments of it which I then take and do share with the world.
Yeah.
So it's an engine of ideas and experimentation.
I did a big poo today.
Yeah, there's some of that. There is some of that. It's sort of just like, because also I try and do it quite stream of consciousness.
Right, so you just go into whatever is coming.
So if I had silly dreams or or I'm feeling a bit grumpy, then I'm just going to grumble for 2 pages,
Grumble.
And sometimes that's what it is.
What? Do you time it? Do you have a timer on?
I mean, I try and do 3 pages.
How big are the pages? A4? A1?
They're A4. I mean, I've had smaller notebooks, so it's slightly changed depending on which notebook I'm on. And occasionally, if I'm pressed for time, I just reduce it slightly. And, there are days when I don't manage it.
Oh, well, that's bad. You failed.
Yeah.
Mark against Anthony does not journal every day.
Not good enough.
Equals not good enough.
Sorry, Amelia.
Have to write in, have it signed by a parent that he's not done his homework. That's how I feel about myself when I don't journal. I'm like, oh, I didn't do it. I really beat myself up. I wrote a really consistent diary when I was in China the second time because I wanted to capture maybe some of the things that happened on the trip. And one of my friends, my roommate, Maria, out there, she recently got married and I did a speech at her wedding. So I went through my diary. Wow. I would recommend it if there's a time in your life that you have been writing.
I've gone back to interesting periods of my life, and it's nice to have that record, and it's also helpful to sort of compare and realize how you've changed.
The change in me and the realization that I was such a worrier, and even though I had been this high achieving person, the worry. Also, I thought, I did terribly over there, I didn't finish my semester. I did a radio show out there. Just denied that as something that...
It's like, on the one hand, you want to just go and pat yourself on the head and say, oh, little Anthony, you are worrying far too much and trying far too hard. Just chill out a bit. But on the other hand, there are these glimpses of creative Anthony wanting to break 3, and it's like, you're really doing well, you're on the right track. It was there all along, you just needed some help. So it's nice in that regard.
And I was like, hang on a minute, someone who's not creative doesn't do a radio show. Was the first foreigner to be part of the student radio, and I had this Chinese co-host called Lynn, and I had this whole experience on there being like, I'm not creative. And I would write. I had a blog. I'm like, I'm not creative. Are you sure about that, Amelia? And I think it was the fact that I felt this perfectionism, this idea of achieving, this really trying and working at it, rather than letting go, being able to actually be in the moment and express whatever you want to express. And that's helped me not only get in touch with myself, but also play with others in a way that's incredibly satisfying. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I pass?
Let me consult my scorecard. Entertainment value 5.
What's it out of? 5. Yes!
It was interesting and thought-provoking exploration, I thought.
I liked getting to know you more. I actually really enjoyed getting to know you
Yeah.
more as a human being that's experienced life and still experiencing it. And that we've actually found something, even though we are two different people, different personalities, but with some similarities, finding improv in various ways.
And coming together at the same moment and discovering it, you know, pretty simultaneously.
Pretty simultaneous.
Having been on these different journeys.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting to just hear what's been going on for you and understand where you've come from.
Yeah.
And how improv has then helped you. I feel like I've really filled in some of the gaps.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, even if you guys didn't like it, we've had a great time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know.